Hi YouTube, it's Mama Doe Dawn and Baby Fun Charlotte, and I made a video in March talking about how I survived on a $75 a month grocery budget. And I realized that about half of my viewers are not American, and most of the tips that I included in that video were specifically for people who live in the United States. If you don't live in the US, not a lot of them are going to apply. So I figured I would make a video with tips that could be used no matter where in the world you are to help you stay on a tighter grocery budget. So here are my frugal food tips that can be used anywhere in the world. And these are all things that I do myself that also helps me stay in a really low budget here in the United States, where food is already ridiculously affordable in my part of the US. I live in the Midwest part of the US where most of our food is grown and a lot of the meat is raised. So a lot of things are very affordable for me, and I am blessed in that way. With condiments, when I reach the end of the bottle with something like salad dressing or barbecue sauce, I will add some water in. Ow, little love. I really got to teach her to not do the hair pulling, because every single video she is pulling my hair. But at the end of the bottle of any different kinds of condiments, even like soy sauce or marin, I will add some water in, and it helps me just get that last little bit out of the bottle for one. And so I use really hot water no matter what it is, from salad dressing to ketchup to soy sauce. I use really hot water. Add the water in and then shake the bottle really hard, and then use the rest of that to flavor whatever dish that I'm using, or just use it as an actual condiment on whatever I was going to use it on. So any casseroles that you make that require meat, I typically use half of like the meat that is recommended in the recipe. So for something like spaghetti, that it tells you to use an entire pound of ground beef. For the sauce, the meat sauce, I will use half a pound of ground beef. And in like a cheesy chicken casserole, I will use half the amount of chicken that is recommended. And because meat is one of the more expensive ingredients usually in casseroles when you're using other really cheap ingredients like noodles, so the meat is probably the more expensive ingredient. So cutting that in half will actually save a lot of money in the long run, especially if you're doing that with every single casserole that you make throughout the month. Next, I add a lot of really cheap fillers into my foods. So cheap fillers can be things like rice, potatoes, onions, here in the United States anyways, and in a lot of places, I would say in most parts of the world, rice is really affordable. Rice can be added to stews and casseroles and soups. Like, rice can pretty much be added to anything, and it makes it more filling, it makes it more caloric, so you don't need to eat as much to feel full, and it's just this super cheap ingredient that goes a really long way. Things like potatoes can be tossed into casseroles and even soups, especially mashed potatoes that are really liquidy can be added into those things as a thickener. You won't even notice that there's much of a taste difference because it's just an extra starch that's in there, or is like extra chunks in like a cheesy casserole or something like that. So potatoes here in the United States, and I think probably a few other parts of the world, potatoes are also relatively affordable. But that's a big one that can be tossed into a lot of things, and again, it's just that cheap filler food that makes your casserole expand and go longer. If you have leftovers and you realize that you're not going to get through the entire container of leftovers before it goes bad, freeze them. I will freeze leftovers for days. If I have made an entire like casserole dish of lasagna and I've only eaten half of it, and I realize that the other half isn't going to be eaten in time, it goes into the freezer right away. I do not deal with food waste, so anything that can be frozen is frozen. Prep all of your veggies as soon as you get back from the grocery store. So a lot of vegetables, at least that I buy anyways, are cooked into other meals and need chopped or cut into slices or minced. And I will just take all my vegetables and I will cut them up as soon as I get home from the grocery store, and do that in the process of putting them away. So on those nights when I'm feeling really lazy, especially as a single mom, I don't always want to cook these extravagant meals. So to just have those vegetables already ready to go makes it a lot easier for me to be able to get up the motivation to go to the kitchen and actually utilize them, and prevents them from being wasted later on. I mentioned leftovers just like 2 tips ago, and another tip with leftovers is to meal plan a leftover night. So once a week usually I will have a meal plan. I have a meal plan for every single day. Let's start with that. And then at the end of the week, usually I will have a day dedicated just to leftovers. So I will eat leftovers for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and just make sure that those get used up. And it's just another way to prevent food waste, because I don't have like this set meal for every single day and then the leftovers never get eaten. I have a day literally just to eat leftovers. Make double of everything you're making and then freeze half. So whether I'm making anything from burritos to spaghetti, I will make extra of it and then freeze some for later on. This prevents me from eating fast food on those times when I'm really busy. Maybe I don't feel well. Maybe I just forgot to prep what I needed to cook for the day. Then I can pull something out of the freezer. It's super easy. I can heat it up in the microwave or the oven, and it just makes for a way that I'm not going out and spending money on restaurant food when it's not planned. You can grow your own fruits and vegetables, specifically in like an apartment setting like me, and this summer I will be doing this. So if you're interested in seeing how I do this, watch for my vlogs in a couple months when I get started on it. But you can grow some things indoors, and I did this in Alaska, in like way north Alaska, not like Anchorage City, Alaska, like little Eskimo village, Alaska. So I grew a lot of things inside in my little cabin with just window light, and I did loose leaf lettuce, grew really well, carrots, radishes, even an entire bucket of potatoes. Just make sure that they're in direct sunlight. I'll kind of show you guys how to do it in my vlog in the future, so stay tuned for that if you want to. But you can grow things even if you don't have a yard. I grow things on windowsills, and that helps save me some money because seeds are so much cheaper than the actual vegetable at the store. Meal planning is a huge thing. I'm not going to get too much into that. I haven't at any point in my YouTube venture gotten into meal planning really big, because I feel like there are so many other YouTubers who just do it so thoroughly, and if you really want to see those videos, you can search meal planning tips and find some awesome YouTubers who are going to teach you a really great way to do that. But with meal planning, a really good tip to keep in mind is to take what you have left over from the last month, so things that you didn't use, specific noodles, specific meats, whatever little ingredients you have, and use those in your next month's meal plan. That way there's no food waste, there's nothing sitting in your cupboards for a really long time, it's expiring, and you're saving money because you're using what you already have in your kitchen to make the food that you're going to be eating. And my last tip is to substitute ingredients when there's a cheaper ingredient available for something that you're using. So here's a few little ones that I use on a regular basis. Mozzarella cheese in the United States anyways is typically cheaper than Italian cheese. Cheddar cheese is typically cheaper than the Mexican blend cheese, so I will use mozzarella instead of Italian cheese, and I will use cheddar instead of a Mexican cheese. Basically what I'm taking is like a block of cheese instead of the cheese blends. It goes a much longer way, and honestly the blocks of cheese taste a lot better anyways, and those specific cheeses, mozzarella and cheddar, are some of the cheapest ones here in the US. In the US, turkey is cheaper than beef, so I will often substitute turkey, especially ground turkey, for beef. I will never use ground beef. I love the taste of ground beef, but I don't use it, especially right now on my debt-free journey. I always opt for ground turkey, which is cheaper. Another tip, and this one actually I don't do, but it's to use milk instead of creamer. That's another substitute. Creamer is a lot more expensive, so if you just buy regular milk, it's gonna be way cheaper for you. I don't do that. I love my coffee. It's kind of my little time in the morning. It's what I have. I have my kind of expensive coffee and my expensive creamer, and that's like the one expensive ingredient that I buy and I have. But if you wanted a cheaper alternative, milk's a pretty good one. So yeah, that's all my frugal food tips that can be used anywhere in the world. If you are outside of the US, since I tend to have a lot of viewers who are from outside the US, first of all, thank you for watching me. That's awesome. I hope that these tips can be applied to you. And what tips work specifically well in your part of the world? What are the cheap ingredients in your part of the world? Whether you're in somewhere in Europe or Asia or Canada, I have had comments from the Netherlands and Canada and so many awesome places. I would love to hear, what are your guys' cheap food tips there? What are the cheap ingredients that you can substitute with, and how can you make your food last longer in whatever part of the world you may be? As always, guys, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.